Today, let's talk about the nervous system. The brain is the great and mighty system, and this feature distinguishes and sets the human species apart from the rest of creation. This ability is known as consciousness or intelligence. The basic purpose of the brain is to coordinate all the activities of the human body. It enables the body to respond and to adapt to changes both inside and outside the body. Now, the nervous system is actually split into two parts: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. We shall explore the peripheral nervous system later, but first let us look into the central nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of two major structures, the brain and the spinal cord. As most of you know, the brain is found inside the skull. There are 6 other structures within the brain. These 6 structures are the cerebrum, cerebellum, diencephalon, the midbrain, pons, and the medulla oblongata. The first section is the cerebrum. This is the largest section. It is divided into 2 major hemispheres, which is the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And the cerebrum is further divided into 4 lobes. These 4 lobes are the frontal, the parietal, the temporal, and the occipital. Frontal lobe is primarily responsible for reasoning and thought. The parietal is primarily responsible for integrating sensory information. The temporal is responsible for processing auditory information from the ears, and the occipital is primarily responsible for visual information from the eyes. The second section of the brain is the cerebellum. This section is located in the back of the head, below the cerebrum and above the first cervical of the head. It is responsible for muscle coordination, balance, posture, and muscle tone. The last section is the medulla oblongata. It is the lowest part of the brain stem, and it connects with the spinal cord and is responsible for regulating heartbeats, blood vessels, digestion, respiration, swallowing, coughing, sneezing, and blood pressure. It is also known as the center for respiration. Now that we have covered the brain, let us take a look at the other half of the central nervous system, that is, the spinal cord. The spinal cord is the link between the brain and the nerves and the rest of the body. The spinal cord is divided into 4 different regions: the cervical thorax, lumbar, and the afferent and efferent spinal nerves, which merge to form the peripheral nervous system. The afferent nerves in the spinal nerves are responsible for carrying information from the body to the brain, and the efferent spinal nerves are responsible for carrying information from the brain to the body. In the afferent nerves or sensory nerves, the brain understands the touch, the smell, the taste, and the sounds, that is, the 5 sensory nerves. The efferent nerves, which is also known as the motor nerves, carries out instructions from the brain to the muscles on how to act. you have mixed nerves. The mixed nerves carry out information from the brain to the muscles and from the muscles to the brain. So information is carried out in both the directions. The spinal cord is also responsible for something that happens fast, and that is reflex action. The spinal cord reacts in an involuntary response to the skeletal muscle called the somatic reflexes. Reflexes are essentially automatic and do not require information from the brain. Although the brain is informed in a way, usually after the act. For example, when someone steps on something sharp and lifts the injured leg, the other leg must also react to keep balance, or the person would fall over. This requires a lot of muscle coordination, and this happens with the help of the brain. Certain organs in our body helps us to sense the things around us. Through them we are able to see, smell, taste, feel and hear. These organs are called sense organs. The eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue and the skin are the sense organs in our body. Now let's begin to study the eyes. The eyes is the sense organ of sight. The skull contains sockets that protects the eyeballs from any injury. The eye has eyelashes, eyebrows and eyelids that protects the eyes from dust particles and sweat. The second most complex organ after the brain is the eye. The dome in front of the eye is the cornea. The eyes have super sensitive nerves and it has the fastest muscles in the human body. When the eye detects a foreign body, it blinks and the dust particles get washed away. The only way to get into the eye is through light. That's how our vision works, and that is why we are not able to see in the dark. The light coming from the source, for example a bulb, hits the object. Some of them gets absorbed and some of them bounces off and enters our eyes. The light then passes through the pupil. Let me tell you about the pupil. The pupil is not a black circle in the eyeball. It's actually a black hole because there is no light in there. The colored part of the eye, which is most attractive, is called the iris. When the light is too bright, the tiny muscles in the colored part of the eye, called the iris, relax to make the pupil smaller. And when the light grows dim, the iris contracts and makes the pupil larger. Next, we have the lens. Like everything in our body grows, the lens too grows. Just like in a cornea, the lens focuses the light more on the retina and hits exactly where it has to make an image at the back of the eye. If you are nearsighted, the lens will focus a little before the retina, and if you are farsighted, then the lens will focus its light away from the retina. When you look into the mirror, you are able to see only 1/6 part of the eye, whereas the rest of it is inside your head. Let us say you are looking at an apple on a blue table and a yellow bulb is hanging above, but the image formed in the retina will be inverted. There are nerves and special receptors called the optic nerve. They turn the light coming into your eye into nerve impulses. The brain then decodes it and makes it a sensor. Have you ever wondered how sound is taken to the brain? Take a musical instrument and play it. It makes sound waves into the ear. The part that we are able to see is called the outer ear. The outer ear catches the waves and then passes through the narrow passage way called the ear canal. It then reaches the eardrum, which is a membrane nearly half the size of a coin. This wave makes the eardrum vibrate, which in turn vibrates the three tiny bones called the malleus, incus, and stapes. These bones amplify the sound vibrations and send them to the cochlea. The cochlea is shaped like a snail and is the size of a pea. It is filled with fluid, and the sound vibration makes the fluid ripple, which makes waves. This is then turned into electrical signals, which is then sent to the auditory nerve, and then the signal goes to the brain, which we later recognize and understand. The nose. The inside of the nose helps us to smell. Information on smell is taken to the brain through nerves, and the brain tells us what the smell is. A blocked nose cannot sense any smell. The tongue. The tongue has a number of taste buds. The tiny bumps that you see on the tongue are called the taste buds. These taste buds can sense sweet, sour, salty, and bitter taste in food. The brain helps us to know the taste and enjoy what we eat. Any kind of taste can be sensed in any part of the tongue by the different kinds of taste buds. The skin is the largest sense organ in the body. It covers the entire body and protects it from injury, germs, and dirt. It has millions of nerves and can react to touch, heat, cold, pressure, and pain. Our fingertips have a large number of nerves which make them very sensitive.